Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Maz, and welcome to another edition of Mastodon Spotlight. Well, as we said a moment ago, normally a college basketball game lasts 40 minutes, two 20-minute halves. But this past Thursday night, the IPFW men liked playing so much, they wanted to play a little longer. With me on the first segment, head men's basketball coach Doug Knoll. And Doug, they wanted to play. Talk about that ball game with SIU Edwardsville.
Well, we had played Edwardsville here early in the year and beat them pretty soundly, 100-74. But we knew that we had played really exceptional that game, and they were a little flat. And it probably was going to be a little bit different game at Edwardsville. And so we came out, but we came out with a lot of intensity. I thought we really played well most of the game, in fact, for 37 minutes. And with about 2 minutes and 54 seconds to go, we had a 14-point lead on the road, and you felt pretty safe with that. But then a series of a couple shots that went down for Edwardsville, some turnovers by us, maybe a couple questionable calls, whatever. The momentum really swung in their favor, and we had a hard time stopping it. 25 seconds to go, they had the basketball. We were up 3. And there's always that question of, do you foul, put them at the line, not let them have the 3? You know, you go back and forth because most teams shoot maybe 35% from 3. Shoot better from the foul line, obviously, but you know, you don't want them to maybe make the first free throw and then get an offensive rebound, put it back, and tie it again. So we always, you know, go back and forth on that, but we decided to foul them. Well, the problem is we told the guys that, but they didn't foul them. And Ryan Sexton, their leading scorer, hit a 3 with about 17 seconds to go. We had a shot at the buzzer, which missed. Luckily, we went into overtime, got the momentum back, played pretty well in the overtime, only gave them 7 points in that 5-minute overtime. We scored 12 and came away with a 91-86 win, which swept them this year and really helped us as far as the conference goes on the road.
Looking at some of the numbers, and we talked before we started taping the show today, some good things, for example, free throws. 29 of 35 at the line as a team, including 12 of 12 from Steve Griffin. I know as a free throw expert that you're very pleased with that performance.
Well, no doubt. You know, free throws win ball games, and we have preached that all year. We shoot a lot. We work on it. We're not shooting as well as I'd basically like to shoot at the free throw line, and part of the key is getting the right people at the line at the right time. And so Steve Griffin's one of our best free throw shooters and one of the best free throw shooters in the GLVC. Went 12 for 12. We designed some plays at the end of the game to get him the ball because we knew they were going to foul us, and he probably made 6 in a row down the stretch. But yeah, when you can make, you know, 84-85% of your free throws in a close ball game, you're going to win a lot of ball games, and so we were pleased with that. Aaron Ishman just gave us a great weekend. Started out at Edwardsville playing really well. Did a great job inside. Our point guards were solid. And so it was a big, big win for us because Edwardsville was 1 game below us in 8th place. And, you know, we are now tied for 6th with Missouri St. Louis. But basically, we really needed that game, and the guys came through, and that was a huge win. We may, one even that we may look back on, Mike, at the end of the year and say, you know, that was the key win in our stretch drive of the last, you know, month of the season.
We talked briefly last week. This is the 2nd straight week where you're on the road. Where you mentioned the kids missed 3 days of school, the long bus rides. In a situation like this, how important is the play of the kids that come off the bench in these when you're back-to-back road trips?
Well, it's very important. It's a big key. What happened last week or a week ago Saturday in St. Louis was that our bench went 3 of 27, which was about 12% or somewhere close. And we shot a season low 28% from the field, season low 60 points, and it looked like, you know, we were tired. Then we came back this week and actually left after classes on Wednesday. We practiced early in the morning, decided to do that so they could get 1 more day of classes in. So the guys and the gals all got the Wednesday classes in and only missed 2 days because, you know, 4 days on the road in each of 2 weeks, or 8 days on the road, I should say, in 2 weeks, really takes a toll. But coming back, I felt like we really played some strong games this week, and it seemed like we were mentally a lot stronger and prepared a lot more for that. but the free throw shooting definitely has really paid off for us, and we didn't shoot that well against Southern Indiana, but we did shoot very well against Southern Illinois.
Well, let's jump into that Southern Indiana ball game. Obviously, the confidence level was high on a road victory. Now you go down to Evansville against a national powerhouse, a team that took care of you first time up here. Nobody expected you to win, but you were in the ball game.
Well, I guess maybe nobody but our team. You know, we always go in thinking, you know, we can win, but, you know, that's basically not the focal point of what we do. You know, winning and losing is a byproduct of everything you work for, everything you practice for, and everything that goes into the game. I mean, I tell our guys, don't think about winning and losing during the game. Think about the plays you need to do. Think about getting stops. Think about, you know, the situations at hand. The winning and losing will take care of themselves. And yeah, nobody really, if you look, you know, they're like the number 10 team in the nation, and 17-2 or whatever their record is now. Very outstanding team. I mean, you know, they want to win. Their president wants them to win. They provide everything. They've got 3 full-time coaches. They've got a manager on a full ride. They've got 10 full ride scholarships. You know, they are set up to win, and you know, they can recruit big-time players. They got Brandon Hughes at guard, who started from Michigan for 2 years in the Big Ten. You know, when you get players like that, whether you have them for 1 year or 2 years or whatever, you're going to have a big-time profile program. And so we went in there with some good confidence, and even the game we played here that we lost by 15, we outscored them in the second half and scored almost 60 points on them. So we really felt like, you know, we could play with this team, even though I think, you know, if you look at it, they are a superior team as far as talent goes. And we've got some good talent, but they just got some top talent. So we went in with that attitude. They jumped off to a quick 6-0 lead. We called timeout. We got back in the game. And it was pretty much of a great game the whole way through. We did make a couple basketball plays at the end of the first half. We're down 1 with about a minute to go. They get 2 baskets. We go into halftime, 51-44, down 7. Really disappointed because we were down 1 and really took a quick shot with about 22 seconds left that gave them another opportunity, which we didn't need. And then we came back in second half. We battled them. Brad Knoll hit 2 threes in a row, and the second one with 6 minutes and 20 seconds put us up 1. And anytime, you know, I think you can look at that, and if you could sit there and tell your guys, if you could play this game and be tied with 5 minutes to go in the game, you know, that's all we ask. Just give us a shot, and some things could happen. And we made a couple bad mistakes down the stretch, threw the ball away a couple times, and, you know, didn't make basketball plays that we needed to make to win. Moral victories don't really count, but it was good that we made the effort, that people saw that, you know, we could play with anybody in this league. And, you know, I commended the guys. Again, Aaron Ishman and Dave Meshberger went 8 for 8 combined. Our point guards, Rainey Spicer and D'Angelo Woodall, had 10 assists and 2 turnovers. We had 27 assists as a team. Anytime you can get 20 or more, you know, you're moving the basketball, you're having great spacing, you're catching off the shot to create assists, and we made them turn the ball over. So, Mike, I was really pleased with the week.
Well, it did end with a loss, but you come home now. And as you say, we're tied for 6th in the conference standings. 2 big home games this week. Thursday night, you get to play David against Goliath because you're going up against the conference leaders in Kentucky Wesleyan. The first time around, you fell behind early at halftime, ended up losing 108-87. And then Saturday, in a game we're going to televise, you get another crack at Bellarmine, a team that you defeated 102-87. Quick look ahead to these 2 ball games.
Well, obviously, Kentucky Wesleyan's a perennial power. They won the national championship last year. They've won it about 7 times. Their only loss is Southern Indiana by 1 at Southern Indiana. So it's going to be a tough task, but we're up for it. I mean, we looked at the schedule, and obviously playing Southern Indiana and Kentucky Wesleyan back-to-back is not the ideal schedule. But, you know, we need to just get better. And if we can play with those people, our confidence is going to get better. Yeah, the first 10 minutes of the first half at Kentucky Wesleyan and the second 10 minutes of the second half, which obviously is half a game, the fouls were 18-2 in their favor down at Owensboro. So, you know, I really felt like, you know, we didn't get some calls that really we needed, but I think, you know, having a good game coming off a good Southern Indiana game, I'm very confident that our guys are going to come back ready to play. Bellarmine will be a crucial game because we beat them there. They're going to be ready to play. They're in 9th place right now, 1 game out from the 8th place spot. So it's a game where we really need to create some more space for us in that 5th and 6th spots in the league. And we just don't want to make the tournament. We want a good seed when we get there. So crucial week. Then the following week we go for 3 games, and then we have 2 more coming back home. So really we got 4 home games in the final 7, and really we control our own destiny, and we've got to win the majority of our games, and I really believe we can.
We wish you luck, and we'll talk about these 2 games next week.
Thanks, Mike.
Doug Knoll's been our first guest, head men's basketball coach here at IPFW. We'll take a short break, and then when we return, we'll talk with women's mentor Carl Semesco. That's when Mastodon Spotlight comes back in just a moment.
Brian's a student that I had in my resource class. Came from a very poor background. Brian just needed a friend, so we paired him with a community leader. He would take him to rodeos, and then he would take him to plays and different things that this child would never have been exposed to. This man taking his time to come and have lunch with him meant more than anything.
Point a kid in the right direction. This is General Colin Powell of America's Promise. Call us and help keep America's Promise.
Bringing you the latest scores and highlights from IPFW Athletics. This is the Mastodon Minute, and I'm John Yaus. Women's basketball action. Thursday night, they faced Southern Illinois University Edwardsville and lost 83-58. Holderman had 18 points, and Fleming had 14 points and 10 rebounds. And on Saturday, they defeated Southern Indiana in a squeaker, 70-68. Cara Moore had a great game with 26 points. Lovelace had 13 rebounds. The Lady Dons are tied for 8th in the GLVC with Indianapolis. Men's basketball also split this week's games. They defeated Southern Illinois Edwardsville in overtime, 91-86. Griffin had 29 points and Wise had 19, and then dropped one to Southern Indiana, 93-102. Griffin had 18 points and Brad Knoll had 13 points in that game, and they are tied with the University of Missouri St. Louis for 6th place in the GLVC. And in men's volleyball, the Dons reversed their losing slide with 2 big straight set victories over Mercyhurst and Penn State. Soto had 24 kills against Mercyhurst. Petak and Lane each had 21 against Penn State, and Soto also had 20. The Dons improved to 1-1 in the MIVA. And here's a list of upcoming events from IPFW Athletics. Men's and women's basketball are at home this week. On Thursday, they face Kentucky Wesleyan in a big conference matchup. The women at 5:30 p.m. and the men at 7:30. And then Saturday, in a game that will be broadcast live on College 56, they face Bellarmine College, the women at 1 p.m. and the men at 3 p.m. And men's volleyball will be on the road again this week, Friday at Loyola Chicago at 7 p.m. and at Clark College at 7 p.m. on Saturday. For more information about IPFW Athletics, please call 219-481-6643, visit us at the World Wide Web, or stop by the Gate Center on the campus of IPFW. And for the Mastodon Minute, I'm John Yaus.
It was called the greatest generation any society has ever produced. They were ordinary people who half a century ago did nothing less than help save the world. Millions served in uniform, millions more served at home, and nearly 500,000 gave their lives. And yet there is no national memorial to honor their sacrifice. It is time to say thank you.
Call now and help build the National World War II Memorial.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. We're joined now by the head women's basketball coach here at IPFW, Carl Semesco. And Carl, they say that a basketball game, it consists of 2 halves of basketball. And this past week, you had two different halves of basketball in each of the two games you played. Let's talk first, we'll get the bad news out of the way, the SIU-Edwardsville game, a game that you were close at halftime, but something happened in the second half.
Yeah, our Edwardsville game, we came out real good. I mean, we were up 9-0 to start the half. We had their best player on the bench with foul trouble, and there was a letdown. I mean, they picked up their play a little bit, realizing that they needed to get back in the game, and they went on a run with their best player on the bench, and maybe the best player in the league, in my opinion. And we finally made a run probably in the last 5 minutes of that half to make it a 2-point game. Now the second half, it was back and forth in a close game until about the 5-minute mark. It's a 5-point game, a 5-minute mark, and we get a 3 taken away with an illegal screen call, kind of reminiscent of another game. And then we come down and get another illegal screen call, and they're shooting free throws after each, and that spread out the lead a little bit. And then they made a couple more plays. Now we're looking at an 11, 12-point lead with 3 minutes to go. And at that point, we have to extend our defense and do some things that really isn't suited to our team. Quickness and athleticism. We don't have that type of team to press and trap and create turnovers. And when we extend our defense, it gets us into trouble. And they have a real good point guard who made good decisions against the press. So suddenly, I mean, the score isn't indicative of what the game was like. It ends up being like a 25-point game. But you're talking about a 2-possession game with 5 minutes to go. And, when we get into a situation where we get down 9 or 10, we're not in a real good situation if we're running low on the clock, because then you have to do some things that extend your defense and pressure to force some things that really we aren't comfortable doing and really aren't suited to our team. So the one thing we were real frustrated at that game is I thought after the couple of the calls that the girls decided to hang their heads instead of battle back, and that was something that we really talked about is never quitting in a game, because you never know what could happen if you make a couple shots and the other team turns the ball over a couple times, or you get some stops. You can really get back into a game quickly. And I thought really in the last 5 minutes of that game, the combination of us having to extend our defense late, but also, I thought our effort waned because I think we gave up a little bit, and that was discouraging, but it was something that we took into the next game.
You probably stole my thunder a little bit. I was going to ask you, what do you and Bob, your assistant, tell these girls after a game where they've been so close and a couple of calls go the other way, and all of a sudden the scoreboard says you lose by 25. Doesn't matter whether you lose by 1 or lose by 25, it's still a loss. How do you get the gals up for the next game?
Well, we challenged them a little bit, and I told them that I didn't think we played that poorly for the first 25 to really even up to 35 minutes of that game, although I did think that Edwardsville showed a little bit better toughness than we did. We showed signs in the first half of letting down when their best player was out, thinking, we get to take a break. Well, their best players on the bench, we get outscored by 20 points. And, they have their best team out there, and we outscore them by about 15 points. So it really didn't make much sense other than we haven't had a consistency of effort. And so, combined with the men's situation where they were up 13 points with a minute and a half to go in the Edwardsville game, we try to use that as a teaching tool, that Edwardsville did not quit, that they kept trying to make plays, and they got the opportunity to send that in overtime, 13 points in a minute and a half, or 2 minutes, or whatever it was. And I told them we were much closer than that, but yet we didn't determine that we were still going to make the effort to make those plays and try to make it. So we went into the next day with, I think, a better understanding, or at least the next game, that we can't quit on each other. No matter what the scoreboard says, we have to play with pride throughout every possession. And if we're down 18 with 30 seconds left, we don't let it get to 20. And, I think we showed signs of that in the next game.
Well, let's talk about that next game. You go to Evansville and you play Southern Indiana, a team that beat you on your home floor earlier in the year. And you start out and you go in the locker room at halftime and you're down by 13, 38-25. Obviously, frustration exists.
Yeah, well, if you combine the last 5 minutes at Edwardsville and the first 20 minutes at Southern Indiana, you may have our worst 25 minutes of basketball of the year, or pretty close to it, if not there. And, weren't making any shots, shooting the ball poorly, and unfortunately, too many times, we don't shoot the ball well. We let it affect other parts of our game. We don't box out as well. We don't run the floor as hard. And that's not really a sign of a real tough team, unfortunately. I mean, it's a sign of a young team, which we are, but we need to have a mindset that, if we're not shooting the ball well, we better be doing these other things. And, I didn't think we really did the things that we set out from the very beginning, that we were going to keep them off the boards. They were getting second and third shot opportunities, that we were going to, out-hustle them down the court. I think they were scoring in transition. So our communication defensively, that was a big emphasis, and it has been since the beginning of the season, but we really stressed how the first game, how our miscommunication and some of the things they did really led to them scoring. First half, it happened again. So we were pretty frustrated at halftime that we have continued to make the same mistakes and we haven't corrected them, and put a challenge to them the second half not to quit and to battle and see what happened.
Well, the second half, whatever you said at halftime, it seemed to get through to them because you outscored USI 45-30. Who were the key players that performed well in that second half?
Well, Kara Morse applied a lot of the offense. She was able, with the dribble, which we haven't got a lot of this year, be able to break down the defense a little bit and get into the paint and force some things to happen. Jamie, who didn't shoot the ball real well, in the second half shot the ball better and got to the foul line. And some of the things when you don't shoot the ball well that you need to do. You need to get in there and see if you can draw the foul or get an easy basket, really to get your confidence going. And she helped us in that regard. Trish Fleming gave us some offense, and she makes some real good decisions offensively. But, Tiara Dudley and Mandy Lovelace, defensively, really, Mandy got on the boards in the second half. And, for the first time all year, I thought we responded to a challenge where teams were getting physical and aggressive, and we didn't back down. Bodies were on the floor. There were several times in this game where there's 4 or 5 bodies just lying on the ground. And, that was a real good sign that we weren't going to quit, that we were going to be physical. And, as I said, Mandy and Tiara, defensively, Tiara made a couple key defensive plays down the stretch that preserved the victory.
Well, the final result was a 70-68 win. A big win because it ties you with Indianapolis for the number 8 slot in the conference race. Even though they beat you head-to-head, you now have a chance to control your own destiny because you do play the Greyhounds one more time. 2 big games at home this week. Thursday night against Kentucky Wesleyan, and then Saturday in the game we'll televise against Bellarmine. When you played Kentucky Wesleyan earlier at their place, you did win the game 76-55, 29 points for Kara Moore and 21 points for Trish. And against Bellarmine, you lost a tough ball game 72-68. Jamie had 29 points to lead you in that ball game. Quick look ahead to these 2 ball games.
Well, they're both real good teams, and we're catching Kentucky Wesleyan at kind of a, they just got beat by 20 at home, and the last time we played them, we beat them at 20 at home, and other than those 2 games, they had played real well. So I'm sure that they're going to rebound, and this is going to be a big revenge game for them, and plus they're in a tight race for positioning for the tournament, and they know they need to win a couple games here to be one of the top seeds in the conference. So, there's no doubt in my mind that they'll be ready. Hopefully we will be able to. We've had a little bit of trouble when we've had success, to keep our work ethic and to keep our focus and to understand we still need that toughness. And, that's my job to make sure that we don't relax on that. And then the Bellarmine game, I thought we played pretty well against Bellarmine the first time. They just, down the stretch, came up with the key rebounds and were a little bit tougher than us. And we're going to have to be tougher than them and still be able to play as well, because we shot the ball pretty well and defended pretty well against a pretty good team. And it came down to 1 possession down at their place. So hopefully we can keep that same intensity and just be a little bit tougher and be in the game against Bellarmine.
We wish you luck, and we'll talk about these 2 games next week.
All right, thank you.
Carl Somesco, head women's basketball coach here at IPFW, has been our second guest. That's it for this edition of Mastodon Spotlight. Again, a big week here at IPFW. 2 home games. Come on out to the Gate Sports Center. Thursday night against Kentucky Wesleyan. Saturday afternoon against Bellarmine. 5 o'clock, 5:30 and 7:30, I think, are the games Thursday night. 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock here on Saturday. And if you can't make it on Saturday, tune into College 56 Sports and we'll bring the action to you. Well, again, that's it for this week. This is Mike Moss saying, have a great week and go Dons. Some very interesting and exciting basketball was played at the Hilliard Gate Sports Center this past week. To see how things turned out with the IPFW basketball teams, stay tuned to Mastodon Spotlight. It's coming up next.
It was called the greatest generation any society has ever produced. They were ordinary people who half a century ago did nothing less than help save the world. Millions served in uniform, millions more served at home, and nearly 500,000 gave their lives. And yet there is no national memorial to honor their sacrifice. It is time to say thank you.
Call now and help build the National World War II Memorial.
Hi everybody, I'm Mike Moss. Welcome to another edition of Mastodon Spotlight. Well, as we said a moment ago, some exciting basketball took place this past week at the Hilliard Gate Sports Center here on the campus at IPFW. And with us in our first segment is head women's basketball coach Carl Somesco. And Carl, to say it was exciting is an understatement. To say it was pleasing was even more of an understatement. Let's talk about these 2 ball games that took place. First, with the longer than usual game against Kentucky Wesleyan Thursday night.
Yeah, Kentucky Wesleyan, we knew they'd come in ready because we beat them at their place, and they were coming off a tough home loss against Missouri St. Louis, and they're fighting for position. And at the time, they were fighting for maybe even getting the number 2 seed in the conference if they could have won both games this weekend, which in hindsight now we know that they didn't, so they're in a little bit of trouble now in regards to seeding. But they were ready, and Kentucky Wesleyan played very well. I thought it was just an excellent, it was just played well by both teams. I look at after 50 minutes of play, both teams combined for 27 turnovers. And, that you can see that people were taking care of the ball, rebounding, people were going after it, there's defense being played. It was just an excellent, it was maybe the best game where both teams played well that we've been associated with all season. And fortunately, we were able to come out on the better half of it. We've had some kids really, make some plays down the stretch that, helped us, come through in a real tight situation.
Some outstanding individual performances. Jamie Holderman, undoubtedly probably the leader of this team, 33 points, including 12 of 12 at the free throw line, which you love to see, and 10 rebounds, a couple of assists, a couple of steals. Talk about her performance first, and then there's a couple of others we want to talk about.
Yeah, Jamie really really came through for us. And as you said, the foul line was a major thing. I mean, we shot very well as a team from the line, and when you're talking about a double overtime game, obviously losing points at the line probably means you lose the game. And she hit all her foul shots, and really has done a good job getting to the basket and drawing fouls, because teams are really doing a pretty good job getting out on her and really making sure that she doesn't get any open looks from the perimeter. So she's had a shot fake and take it to the goal, and I mean, she's not a real big girl, so she needs to get in there and make sure that she draws some contact and get herself at the line where, I mean, she's the best free throw shooter in the conference, so we need to get her there as much as possible.
Another person with an outstanding game, Trish Fleming, 24 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, and 1 steal.
Yeah, Trish Fleming had an outstanding weekend. I mean, she played real well, real strong. I mean, took it to the basket with authority. Made the defense respond to her. I mean, I was real pleased with the way she picked things up, and she was much more aggressive. And we went to her down the stretch. I mean, even at the end of the game, trying to get the game-winning shots, and really liked how she's progressed, and hopefully she can maintain this level of play for the next 5 games.
A couple of other performances. Kara Moore, 16 points, 4 assists, and 1 steal. And Shani Smith, the freshman guard, with 11 points and a couple of assists and 2 steals.
Yeah, we got pretty good guard play out of both Kara and Shani, and really from Shani for the whole weekend. Probably the best weekend of basketball we've had from her all season. And I think the biggest difference is, while she looks more comfortable offensively, the biggest difference really was defensively, being able to contain the dribble, and also really helping us on the boards. We've been really stressing that she needs to put a body on somebody and help out any way she can on the boards. I think she had 16 rebounds this weekend, and from a point guard position, that's pretty good production, and hopefully she can continue and and improve and give us that kind of play. If we can get that kind of play out of a Shani and Trish, we're obviously much tougher to beat.
Now, the final score was 90-87. IPFW in double overtime, a big win for you. And that set things up for Saturday's game, a game which we broadcast here on College 56 Sports against Bellarmine College, a team that had the same overall record as IPFW coming in, but a team that was tied for 3rd in conference play at 9-5 coming into this game. And let's talk about the Saturday game a little bit.
Well, Bellarmine is a real good team. In fact, right now, or at least as of last week, had the season ended, they would have made the national tournament, and they made the national tournament the year before, had everybody back. So they're experienced, they're quick, they're athletic, they're a smart team, so they can give you a lot of trouble. One thing that was real good for us is our defense. We forced them into shots that we wanted them to take rather than what they wanted to take. In the first meeting between us, I thought we had outplayed them both offensively and defensively, but in conversion, I mean, they really hurt us in transition. And we wanted to make them score on our half-court defense as much as possible, force them into tough shots and get the rebound. I thought we rebounded well. I thought we forced them into taking some tough shots, and really that was the major difference. They did a nice job defensively against us, and we had some kids really use the shot fake very well, penetrate into the middle, and make good decisions with the basketball. So, I mean, this was a big weekend for us. I think, had we not won both of them, we'd be in real trouble as it relates to getting into the conference tournament. And that's our goal. And, I mean, we still, it's still very, you got 5 games left, and we got 3 consecutive games in 1 week span on the road, which is going to be very tough. But, we gave ourselves the opportunity to compete to get into the national tournament, I feel, over the last 3 games. And, hopefully, we can win a couple more games and get ourselves in.
Now, before we talk about this week's hectic schedule on the road, there is one player I do want to talk about from the Saturday performance, and that's Tiara Dudley. Tiara, I know we've talked before on this show about how we've had trouble keeping her in ball games for the entire 40 minutes, but Tiara in this ball game, 9 points and 13 rebounds, including 7 offensive boards. Critical rebounds at critical times. Talk about her performance.
Well, Tiara is, an often overlooked player because usually she won't have those type of numbers. She had an excellent game Saturday and had great production as it comes to rebounding, scoring, but those are pretty high numbers as it relates to how she, usually ends a game. Part of that is because of foul trouble. Part of that is because we have her doing other things. But what she does for us, it's not overlooked by coaches. She makes the most defensive plays on our team. She provides the help. She sets the most screens. Her and Mandy both set the most screens that directly lead to scores. A lot of things that you don't get credit for, your name in the paper, people say, wow, he scored 28, but it's vital if your team is going to be successful. And she's been that type of player. She's our toughest player. She's the one that is always helping out her teammates, both offensively and defensively, and it was nice to see her really get on the offensive glass. And, in the same ways that she's been helping everybody else, I think some of our other players helped her this week by being able to penetrate and get into the middle. Their big people have to step up and help. Gives her a chance to get position for offensive boards. So, it really is a team game. And, what you like to say, hey, if you keep helping out, what comes around goes around and you'll get your opportunities. And she did, and she made the most of it. And, she's been one of the best freshmen in this league, although she won't get credit for that just because she doesn't have the statistics for that.
Now the bottom line was a 69-55 win, 3rd win in a row, raises the conference record to 7-8, the overall record to 11-10. As we speak, as we're taping this show, we're in 7th place, or I should say 8th place. 1 game ahead of Indianapolis, 1 game behind Kentucky Wesleyan, but a big week. As this show was aired, you have already played St. Joseph on Tuesday night at St. Joseph. That's followed by a game at Indianapolis on Thursday and then at Northern Kentucky on Saturday. We beat St. Joe when they were here the first time. The big controversial, alleged illegal screen against Indianapolis, which may have cost us the game, at least kept us from going into overtime. And in Northern Kentucky, first place in the conference. A quick thought to these 3 games coming up.
Well, it's hard to even, we played Northern Kentucky tough the first time and until about 6 minutes left in the game. We had the lead, but it's hard to even think about that game right now. And what I'm most concerned about is we have Indy at Indy on Thursday, but I do not want us thinking about that game because of St. Joe is. And obviously the Indy game is the team we're most directly battling for the 8th spot, and had that controversial finish at our place. So, but I don't think we can afford to be thinking about Indy at all at this point because St. Joe, that is going to be a very tough game. I guarantee. There's no way that we can walk in there and I don't think we, can just go in there and beat them handily, no matter how well we play. We're going to need to play very well to beat them at their place. Their best player, who's an All-American, put up 71 points this weekend, 40 on Thursday, 31 on Saturday. And, they just beat Kentucky Wesleyan on Saturday. And, they're a proud team. They start 4 seniors and a junior, and they would desperately like to make the conference tournament, and they realize they can't lose again, or they can't lose more than once again. So it's going to be very tough. And Tuesday is our big focus against St. Joseph's. Hopefully we can put it together. It's going to take everything we have, and hopefully we can win that game. And then we'll worry about Thursday after Tuesday.
Well, congratulations on the big weekend, a 3-game winning streak, and best of luck this coming week.
Thank you.
Carl Semesco has been our first guest, head women's basketball coach here at IPFW. We'll take a short break, and then when we return, Doug Noll will talk about the men's action. That's when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
Mr. and Mrs. Jones, Sally's having some behavioral problems.
I guess that reward system isn't working.
Well, the timeouts weren't either.
Parents do find that timeouts aren't...
See?
Well, you're just too lenient.
Well, you're too strict.
No, you are.
Oh, you are.
No, you are.
No, you are.
When adults don't have the answers, they can feel as frustrated as kids. ConnectForKids.org has thousands of resources for helping kids in your community.
Too strict. You're too
ConnectForKids.org, guidance for grown-ups.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. We're joined now by the head men's basketball coach here at IPFW, Doug Noel. And Doug, unfortunately for the men's team, the results weren't the same this weekend as it was for the women's team. But let's talk about these two games that were played. First, against the perennial power and conference leader Kentucky Wesleyan Thursday night.
Well, we felt like the last time we played them down at their place, we played them pretty solid. We only got out-rebounded by 6. They got 2 Division I transfers inside, both 6'9". Just a great basketball team. I mean, won the national championship last year. They're top 3 in the nation this year, and so it was a great challenge for us. And we picked a real bad night to, go cold from the field and not shoot the basketball. I felt like the rest of our game plan kind of fell into place. When you look at the stats, it almost shocks you that they had 7 assists and 31 turnovers. And part of the problem was when we made them turn the ball over, we in turn a lot of times turned the ball over back to them or couldn't capitalize with some transition baskets, which was very difficult. And we shot 3 of 21 from 3 in the second half. We actually shot 50% the first half, I think 6 of 12. But had we been able to sustain and put a run on, by being able to knock down some shots, I think they were ripe for the picking, because it just didn't look like they were ready to play, and they're good enough that they can get by with that. We're not. And so we were disappointed. When you shoot that bad and the game's 8 to 10 points the whole second half up until you've got to foul them, in the last couple minutes, was pleased with the effort, but obviously not the outcome.
In a game, as you said, where it's an 8 to 10 point game and it goes on and goes on for 10, 12, 15, 16 minutes, how frustrating is it on the bench knowing that, hey, if they can just hit 2 shots in a row or make 2 stops in a row, that we can get over, this hump?
Yeah. Well, basketball comes down to, a stop here, a lucky break here, a basket here. I know, in the Bellarmine game Saturday, several times we got to help side, tipped the ball, deflected the ball, and it went right to them, wide open outside. They knocked down a 3, and it's very frustrating, especially when you're trying to make a run, but you're trading baskets, or they don't score, you don't score, then all of a sudden they score and you score, and you're not gaining any ground. It's very frustrating, and you let them play. You try to call some sets to get a little more structured, and sometimes it doesn't matter how good you are. You can play very bad but shoot the ball well and look great, and you can play very well and shoot the ball bad and look pretty poor as a team, and that's kind of what we did. And we had our opportunities, and we just didn't take advantage of them, and it was a disappointing loss for us.
Final score Thursday was 94-78, and now let's talk about the Saturday game against Bellarmine.
We have to.
Well, unfortunately, the contract says, yeah, we have to. But
okay.
This was a game that for the first, I'm going to say 16 minutes, give or take, you played very well. We had the lead, tried to stretch it a little bit, but at one point the score was 40-36. We were ahead by 4. And then about the last 3 to 4 minutes, they went on a run, grabbed the lead, and it just... And there were a couple of occasions where you talk about the fortuitous break and the bounce,
right,
and the ball just getting over the outstretched hand. Well, let's talk a little bit about it. There was control, there was some good play, and then that run puts you in a hole.
Yeah, I really felt like, the whole game we were trying to really dig ourselves out of a hole. And as you look at that from a coaching standpoint, probably one of the most disappointing games, we've had as a coaching staff since we've been here this year. It was a must game. I mean, they were 1 game below us in the standings. We'd beat them by 15 at their place and played very well. But they are hot. They've won 4 or 5 in a row, making a nice run. They've got good guard play. We got the first basket or so on a dunk from Michael Akani, but then they made a nice run and we're up 21-10. They actually got out to about a 10, 11-point lead on us. And then we put together a nice run, came back and actually took the lead 36-30 and had a 6-point lead on them, but couldn't close the half. And like you said, I think we were up 40-36 maybe, but at the same time, the last 4 or 5 minutes, they made a 25-7 run and took the lead 24-7 because we scored a point in the locker room at halftime. When we went down, it was 55-43, and when we came out, it was 55-44. So one of the first times we've been able to score while we weren't on the court. But I think they missed a free throw that we...
I'll take a thank you gift at halftime because I talked to them about it.
We talked to them too, and they didn't seem to want to put it up until we got back. But the next 10 minutes were the key for us. This team is averaging 75 points a game, and we gave them 55 at half. Totally unacceptable defensively, and just very disappointed in the overall play of not only the team but our seniors. And I've talked to them about this. We have to have more senior leadership. We have to have more guys, wanting to make plays, wanting to make stops, really wanting to finish this. And, sometimes I get the feeling that our guys, have pretty much just think it's over with, and we're right in the hunt. I mean, we were in 6th place coming into the game, and now we're fighting for, making the tournament right now. And, 3 games on the road. We gave them, Mike, 11 points in the first 10 minutes of the second half and came back and tied it and took the lead. But if you look at 30 minutes of that game, we gave them 85 points in 30 minutes. In the first half, in the last 10 minutes of the second half, we gave them another 30. So we gave them 11 in the first part of the first half and 30 in the second. And you're not going to win basketball games, home or on the road, like that. And that's where, I just felt like, this team could have made a statement this weekend, could have gotten 2 games up on them, another 3 games up on the 8th place team, and really put some space between that bottom part, because we've got to go on the road for 3 games this week. That didn't happen, and so now, we can't, even though we had some good help this weekend by Southern Illinois getting beat, by Wisconsin Parkside, who's in last. UMSL got beat. They turned around and beat Northern Kentucky on Thursday, but then got beat by Indianapolis on Saturday. So, it looks like everybody's still helping us hang in there, but if we don't help ourselves, 2 weeks from today, we're going to be students and not student athletes. And, we are always students first, but it'd be nice to, have 1 more week, and then 2 weeks from today, prepare to head down to Evansville, in a couple days after that period to go down and play in the tournament. But the way we're focusing right now and playing, I'm not sure we can get there, and that hurts with the work the coaching staff has put in. We've got to have some people pick it up, and we got to get some things done.
Hope springs eternal. Always remember that. Hope springs eternal. As we speak, we are tied with Bellarmine in the conference race at 6-9, 1 game behind Missouri St. Louis, 1 game ahead of SIU Edwardsville, but you do have the tiebreaker advantage. You've beaten them twice if it comes to that. 3 important games this week, all on the road. The Tuesday night game, which when this is aired will have already been played at St. Joseph's, a team that you beat earlier in the year. Thursday at Indianapolis, and even though I think the first time the final score was 91-79, it was a closer game than that. And then Saturday at Northern Kentucky, and again a game that 92-74 was not reflective of the final score. I mean, of the way the total of the game was played.
Right.
We know the old cliche, you have to go 1 at a time. And I'll ask you to talk briefly about each game, but realistically, you've got to win 2 of the 3 to keep the hopes somewhat up.
Well, you would hope so. I mean, we're looking at 1 game right now, and that's tomorrow night at St. Joe. A struggling team, lost 7 in a row. With the way things have gone for us, they may pick a nice night to get hot and play their best game of the year. But we beat them here by 8, and I think they've really lost some confidence. We may have a little bit, but I think I was a little nervous because yesterday in the Journal I looked at the box score and saw that they beat Kentucky Wesleyan by 2, 84-82, and my heart went in my throat. Come to find out that was the women's score that they stuck in the men's box score. Ended up they got beat 101-70, 31 by Kentucky Wesleyan. So I think, if we can regroup, go in there with a great attitude and just play hard, compete for 40 minutes, hopefully good things will happen, but it won't be easy. They're looking to turn things around too. I'm not sure. I don't know their mindset if they've given up, but we definitely haven't. So it's a game for us to go take. Thursday, I felt like Indianapolis game here, we played very poorly. We're down 12 at half, tied it up in the second half again, and then, it was about 6 with a couple minutes to go. We fouled them. The score was not indicative, but we didn't play well. So that will be a tough game at Indy. They're playing well. Beat UMSL at UMSL on Saturday, and they've got some good confidence going. But they're going to have to play a pretty tough game against Northern Kentucky tomorrow night. So we'll see how that affects them. And then Northern Kentucky Saturday, which is, light years away as far as I'm concerned right now. 3 games this week will not be easy. Practices will be very limited as far as what we do because of the pounding, 10 guys. Shift the lineup a little bit tomorrow night, and I think we're going to start Dwight Crow, freshman from Stockbridge, Michigan, been playing very well, and move Michael Akani to the post. Even though Mike's 6'5", we've been playing guys out of position all year. So, we're just going to try some changes and see, if we can get some good things out of a lineup right now. But tomorrow's the key game. I mean, we've got to have that one first. And but you also can't go in thinking about winning. You've got to go in thinking about executing, doing the little things, because winning and losing become the byproduct of what you do during those 40 minutes. So we'll see what happens there. Next week we have 2 home games to finish, and I would like to think that could be a boost going into the tournament if we don't crash and burn this week and play poorly on the road.
We wish you the best of luck.
Thank
and
you.
Hopefully things will turn around, and we'll talk next week about 3 wins.
Good. Hope so.
Doug Noll's been our second guest, head men's basketball coach here at IPFW. That will do it for this edition of Mastodon Spotlight. We want to thank the coaches, as always, for appearing on the show, and we want to thank you, the viewer, for tuning in to see what's going on with IPFW athletics. Until next week, this is Mike Moss saying have a great week, and go Dons. This past week was perhaps the toughest week of the season for both the IPFW men's and women's basketball teams as they played 3 games in 5 nights, all on the road. To see how things turned out, stay tuned to Mastodon Spotlight. It's coming up next.
It was called the greatest generation any society has ever produced. They were ordinary people who half a century ago did nothing less than help save the world. Millions served in uniform, millions more served at home, and nearly 500,000 gave their lives. And yet there is no national memorial to honor their sacrifice. It is time to say thank you.
Call now and help build the National World War II Memorial.
Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Moss. Welcome to another edition of Mastodon Spotlight. Well, as we said a moment ago, perhaps the toughest week of the season last week for the IPFW basketball teams, as they had to play 3 games instead of 2. And with us on our first segment, men's coach Doug Noll. And Doug, we've talked all year about it's been tough enough when you have student athletes having to go to class, play a couple of games, sometimes at home, sometimes on the road. But last week, having to go 3 different venues, playing 3 tough ball games, with the situation in the conference race as it is, describe what the week was like.
Well, it was a tough week, and then when you turn around and look at the fact that the Saturday before and the Thursday before we also played, so we're playing Thursday, Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. There's 5 games in about 8, 9, 10 days somewhere. So, that was a big part of the factor, plus traveling all season, getting down to crunch time, getting down to the final weeks of the season. It's taken its toll right now, but definitely I thought we came out, Tuesday night against St. Joe and played really well, and I thought we really played about 5 out of the 6 halves this week really pretty well, even though we went 1 and 2 on the road. We had a chance to win at Northern Kentucky Saturday night, but we're glad that we've finished that up. Now we're home. The last 2 dates of our conference schedule, winding down the last week to get to the tournament, and that's what we're looking forward to.
Well, let's go back a little bit and let's talk about the 3 games, starting with the Tuesday game at St. Joseph. A pretty good start. You jumped out to a big lead in the first half, and things went your way.
Well, I think really we came off the Bellarmine loss, and we didn't play very well defensively as a team. We scored 90 points. That'll be enough to win a game. But we gave up 96, and really it was 91-90 with 30 seconds to go. So the score wasn't really that indicative of the outcome. But we really focused on the next couple days on defensively what we needed to change and do. And we really did it. We jumped out, I think it was 25-20, and then we made a nice run, closed the half at 49-31, hit the first 8 or 10 points of the second half, got a lead as much as 27 on St. Joe. And, you know, St. Joe beat Indianapolis at St. Joe, and 5 of their 6 wins have come at home. So, you know, it was a game for us that we really needed to get back into the winning column and really pick it back up again. And we did that, and I was real pleased with that effort. Going to Indianapolis on Thursday then for our little three-game trip, Indianapolis probably shot as well as anybody I've ever seen shoot in one half of basketball. They made their first 8 shots. They finished 22 of 22 for the game from the free throw line. They shot over 60%, 65 almost on the night, over 50% from 3, and 100% at the free throw line. That's tough to beat anywhere, you know. So, but we did outscore in the second half, played much better defensively, just too little too late, and we just dug ourselves a hole there.
In that Indianapolis game, like you said, they shot lights out from everywhere imaginable, 2s, 3s, free throws, so forth. As an opposing coach, you're seeing this happen. Obviously, your kids are trying as hard as they can to stop it, but it's got to be an awful feeling.
Yeah, it's not real great watching the other team, you know, play so well and shoot the basketball so well. But I felt like, too, we didn't come in with the intensity. We were a little soft defensively, didn't hedge screens, didn't come over the top hard, and we made some adjustments. I felt like really we needed to play much better defensively in the second half. And they hit a 3 at the buzzer, which we went from 11 to 14 down then, which was very disheartening. But we came back. We really played much better, gave them 37 points in the second half. And I think let our guys understand, guys, you know, you've got to show up and play 40 minutes. You've got to play hard. You've got to play defensively. You've got to compete. And otherwise, this league is too good. You know, you're just going to get slapped around if you don't. And I think we took that into the Northern Kentucky game.
Well, you were victorious over St. Joseph. We lost to Indianapolis 98-85. Now you travel to Northern Kentucky and against a pretty good basketball team. And let's talk about that ball game because you were leading at halftime, 34-30.
Yeah, it was not our typical get up and down the floor and score a lot of points game. Both teams did get up and down the floor. We just, neither one of us shot the ball exceptionally well. But we really came out. They had their homecoming. The place was packed, you know, maybe 2,500, 3,000 fans. And they're one of the top 3-point shooting teams in the nation, number 1 in our league, but we're number 2. So you saw the top 2 3-point shooting teams in the conference playing. And they came out and didn't shoot especially well early, and that gave us some momentum. We were up 8-0 to start with. Michael Akani hit a couple threes to start the game, hit 3 in the first 6 minutes or so. And it was a good first half for us. It was low scoring, but we kept the tempo that way somewhat. And we just, we took the halftime lead, 34-30. We knew they weren't going to shoot that bad the second half, but we sustained a couple of their runs and actually put ourselves in a position where we wanted to be in. We had the ball with a minute to go, down 1. Called a couple timeouts. Steve Griffin got a great look at the basket, just didn't knock it down. They went to the other end, and we thought the guy charged on D'Angelo Woodall, lowered his shoulder, and D went flying about 4 feet. You can see it on film. And then the guy shot the basket and scored. They gave him the basket and a free throw. We went down, missed, and we fouled, and it was a 5-point win for them. But obviously, I think it was a great game for us to play this close to the end of the year, coming into the final week here. So was real proud of the way we played, but again disappointed because we had a chance to win that game, and that would have been a great upset having them be the number 2 team in the conference, picked to win the conference, top 20 in the nation as far as Division II goes, and we held our own. So we found a lot of bright spots, a lot of positives to take into this week.
Well, when all the dust had settled and you got on the bus and made that long trip back home from Kentucky, the conference standings is amazing. A quick look, Kentucky Wesleyan's on top 16-2. Northern Kentucky and Southern Indiana are tied for second at 15-3. Then you got Lewis and Indianapolis tied for fourth at 12-6. And then there's a three-way tie for sixth, or fifth, I should say, fifth, sixth, seventh, between Missouri St. Louis, Bellarmine, and IPFW. And Quincy is in the ninth spot at 6-12, one game behind the trio. You control your own destiny coming into this week. 2 big games, both at home. First against Missouri St. Louis Thursday night. Payback time, perhaps, because when you were at their place, you lost. And then next Saturday in the home finale, again, that we're going to broadcast here on College 56, you play Quincy, a team that you defeated earlier in the year. We'll talk about the 2 opponents first, but before that, my first question is, how important is it to have these final 2 games that mean so much in terms of the conference race being played here at the Gates Sports Center?
Well, we think it's really to our advantage, although we haven't played especially well at home, in the new millennium. But we still think, it's a great advantage to us not to be traveling, to be at home. And the other thing is we're playing a team that's tied with us, and we're playing a team that's 1 game below us. So we do create our own destiny. I don't think, in our position, we were picked 11th in the league. We win both, we're going to finish 6th, which I think is, it's a good start for the new program. I'm not completely 100% satisfied, obviously, as no coach probably ever is. Even if he had an undefeated season and won the national championship, you'd probably figure out why he didn't win by more. But I think, we look at it that it's a special week for where we've started, where we're at, where we've been. I don't think we'd want it any other way. Sure, it'd be nice to say, well, we won a couple more games and we're definitely in. But it does create the fact that, what type of team do we have now? Here it is, the last regular season week. We've got teams that we have coming into our barn to play, and we create our own destiny. And we can win 1, we're probably in. Win 2, we'll probably get the 6th spot, which means Northern Kentucky has to go to Southern Indiana, and if they would lose, we would probably turn around and play them again in the tournament, and we match up really well with them. They're a good shooting team, so are we. They're a little less physical than a Southern Indiana, but at this point in time, we'll play anybody in any time to get in the tournament. But Missouri St. Louis was a game where we shot the worst percentage of all year. We shot 22 at half, 28 for the game, and we were tied with 4:17 left. They hit a couple threes, and then we had to foul them, and the score was 12 points, which was not indicative, although we were down 9 at half. So we feel like, we're going to shoot the ball better than we did at that game. We were on their home turf, and now they're here, and we've got to play much better. Parkside beat them this week, and so, that's our first and foremost game, and we've got 3 days to prepare for that one. And we've already cut the tape, and we're well into to that right now. In the next couple days of practice, we're not even thinking about Quincy. We'll think about them afterwards. And then Quincy, we did beat on the road. We did play very well, but they turned around and beat Lewis this weekend, which, you almost thought Quincy was out of it. And they turned around and beat Lewis. Anything can happen. I mean, we've got to come and play 80 hard minutes of basketball this week. We have got to rebound. We have got to play better than we've played all year. And hopefully, if we can do that, then it's going to be a great finish. We'll have the momentum going into the tournament, Mike, that we need. And who knows, in the tournament, anything can happen. So, let's just hope that, this culminates a good start to our season, a good finish to our season, and I think overall, we can look at it and say, we made some strides.
We wish you luck, and
Thank you.
We look forward to broadcasting the Saturday game, and hopefully it'll be a festive mood, and we'll get 2 wins, and look forward to the tournament next week?
Well, we got 6 seniors on the team, and it'll be senior day on Saturday, and so hopefully, you know, everybody will play, you know, above their level, and you know, we can go out and you know, do it for the seniors.
And we wish you luck.
Thank you.
Doug Noll has been our first guest, the men's head basketball coach here at IPFW. We'll take a break, and when we return, Carl Semesco will tell us how the women fared. That's when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
As the American military gets smaller, who will be there to answer the call? They will. They're the National Guard and Reserve, and they make up half of today's military forces. As an employer, you may be asked to support their mission. Remember, their response depends on yours.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. We're joined now by the head women's basketball coach here at IPFW, Carl Semesco. And Carl, you had the same situation that Doug had. 3 games in 5 nights in 3 cities, all on the road. Let's talk about your week. Before we talk about the games itself, let's talk about the preparation, what you and your staff had to set up, knowing that this was going to be a tough week.
Well, you knew you had a bunch of road games in a short period of time, and you just had to, you know, prepare the tape and make sure that you were trying to get your team prepared, but at the same time realize that they were going to be under some real tough circumstances and having to bounce back real quick on the road and be ready to compete again, especially our players log a lot of minutes. You know, we haven't gone real deep down the stretch. We've been shortening up the bench and trying to go with the best players for the most amount of minutes, and you know, so it's just a matter of just trying to get them rested, but at the same time making sure that they're prepared.
Let's talk about the first ball game last Tuesday night against St. Joseph's, a team that you had defeated earlier in the year in the conference opener. And the final score was 78-72, but let's talk about it.
Well, St. Joseph's, I thought the first half they probably outplayed us, and you know, we knew that we had to. That was a game that I thought was a must-win for us going into, you know, 2 more road games that same week. And the second half we played much better. I mean, took like a 14-point lead, but then down the stretch we made a couple mental errors that allowed them to get back into it. I mean, we were never in a critical situation where they were within 1 possession. But, you know, you'd hate to see your team down the stretch make some mistakes with the ball, make some mistakes defensively by fouling and putting them on the line, that type of thing. And so we were very happy to get out of there with a win. You know, at that point realizing if we beat Indianapolis at Indianapolis, we put ourselves in the tournament, and you know, we can start working on positioning in the tournament. And so we're pretty happy with coming out with a win there.
Big games for Jamie Holderman with 32 points, Trish Fleming with 18, and Shani Smith with 14.
Yeah, Shani's been playing a lot better, providing a spark for us, dramatically improved as of late, and that's very pleasing. You know, Jamie we count on a game-to-game basis to provide some scoring for us, and St. Joe, especially the first half, she was one of the only scoring options we had, and Trish has been pretty consistent with putting up some points for us.
One other stat that caught the eye, 22 of 26 at the foul line.
Yeah, we've been spending more time working on the free throw line, and there was a few game stretch there. Didn't continue through the whole weekend, but a few game stretch where we were really shooting at a high percentage. And I mean, a big part of that is, I mean, if Jamie Holderman is the leading free throw shooter in the conference. If she's going to the line 12 or 14 times out of your 22, you got a pretty good chance of shooting a very high percentage for the game. But other players have been shooting the ball from the free throw line pretty well, and even last night as we go into this week, we spent a little extra time on free throws so that we can make the crucial ones down the stretch.
Well, that evened the conference record at 8-8, and then we get to Indianapolis. Payback time, if you will, and we've talked about it on several programs about the infamous call with 18 seconds to go. But that was then, and now we're at Thursday night at Nicholson Hall. You go in the locker room at halftime, you're down 4, 39-35, but you're in the ball game. What did you say to the gals at halftime?
Well, I just told them that we needed to play a strong 20 minutes, that I thought defensively we didn't do a very good job in the first 20. Our defensive positioning wasn't very good, and I don't think defensively we got much better in the second half, to be honest with you. We gave up way too many layups. Help side was out of position for most of the game, and you know, we weren't really helping each other out defensively. Having said that, we were still in position to win this game. We were, you know, up 6 with just a couple minutes to go. They're shooting free throw, they miss it. We don't get the rebound. Well, they kick it out and knock down a 3. I think that was a big play. Also, you know, Shaney Smith hits a clutch shot at the end, hits a 3-pointer, gets fouled. We're up 3. You know, 21 seconds or so to go. She has a foul shot to make it 4. We miss the foul shot. Now all we have to do is get a stop, and you know, they have to use like 3 timeouts because we're playing good defense. And with 7 seconds to go, one of their post players, we don't defend her correctly. She pulls up and hits a 3, sends it in overtime. A kid that's hit 3 3-pointers all year. So, you know, you have a breakdown that gives her an opportunity, and then, you know, the kid stepped up, and you got to give her credit for that. But, you know, and then we have a chance in overtime to win it, and we don't do it. So, I mean, we put ourselves in a tough position in that game. I think we should have won the game in regulation. We didn't, especially with everything on the line. That game, we can knock Indy out of the race. Now Indy's in the race, and not only are they in the race, they have the tiebreaker over us. So that was a real big loss, and that, you know, we've had a large number of games come down to the final possession, 7 so far this year, and we're only 2-5 in those games. And I've tried to explain to our players, if we were the team that made the plays at the end of the game like some of these other teams, and we were 5-2, what a difference that would make in those 7 games. We'd be, well, after Northern Kentucky, we wouldn't be anymore, but at the time, we would have been in 2nd place in the conference if we were 5-2 in those 7 games instead of 2-5. And, you know, I don't think they really saw it like that before, and I think they didn't realize how close they were to being what would be considered an NCAA tournament team, where now you go 2-5 in those games, and you're fighting just to get into the conference tournament.
Well, the final score in overtime was 93-90. The game's over. A tough game, a game that you wanted to win badly, had chances. What was the reaction like following the game, now knowing that you had to make one more trip to play the conference leaders at Northern Kentucky?
Well, we didn't, you know, I didn't really get on them very hard after the game because I knew how emotional it was and how bad we all wanted it, and just told them that we have to regroup and, you know, try to play at Northern Kentucky. There's only a couple teams that have been ahead of Northern Kentucky in the second half of games this year. They've lost 1 in the conference, and, you know, us in Edwardsville have had a lead on them in the second half. Us pretty late in the second half with about 6 minutes to go. So I thought we were one of the teams that could compete with them. I knew that it'd be tough because Northern Kentucky had been home all week and we'd been traveling all week, but you know, I thought we could really compete and do some things to give them trouble.
Well, you made the trip, and we start off, and you play well, and you go in the locker room at halftime only down 3, 40-37. You had to be feeling relatively good about your chances.
Yeah, and Northern Kentucky played exceptionally well that first half. I mean, when they got an open shot, they knocked it down. They were very good with the basketball. I think at halftime they had 3 turnovers. I mean, they had played an exceptional half, and we were down 3. So we knew we just have to keep playing at that level. And, you know, if Northern Kentucky continues to play at that level, we're probably not going to win. But there's not many people that can beat Northern Kentucky when they're playing that well. Hopefully their shooting percentage goes down a little bit and we can stay in the game and make some plays at the end. And at the beginning of the second half, things looked pretty good. We tied up right away, go to the foul line to take a lead. But, you know, after that, it was just, it was pretty miserable. Things slid away from us pretty fast. I mean, you know, still with about 10 minutes to go, it's a 7-point game, but we had absolutely nothing left. I mean, we were in some bad foul trouble with post players and stuff like that, and players were being left in for a long period of time. And as Doug mentioned in his segment, we played 5 games in 9-10 days. Well, we have a double overtime game in there. We have a single overtime game in there. You look at kids like Jamie Holderman, who over those 5 games is averaging over 40 minutes a game, over a full game. And Trish Fleming, I mean, most of our players are up over 38 minutes per game in that stretch. And I just think, that we just wore out physically. You look at our shooting percentage in the second half was 15, and free throws, couldn't make free throws. I think it was just, I'm not taking anything away from Northern Kentucky. They're the best team in our conference. They played exceptionally well, defended us very well the second half, but I think part of it too was just, wore out to the point where we couldn't compete anymore. And so we had a very light day yesterday, and we're having today off, and hopefully we can regroup and so that we can put together, and I think we will be able to put 40 good minutes together, get refreshed a little bit, and knock out a couple of wins for this last weekend. It's very crucial.
Well, as you say, final weekend of the conference season, both games at home, Thursday night against Missouri St. Louis, Saturday against Quincy. Conference race is crazy right now. You said Northern Kentucky's on top. Then a 4-way tie for second between SIU, Edwardsville, Bellarmine, Missouri St. Louis, and Lewis. Then Southern Indiana is in the number 6 slot at 10-8. And then there's a 3-way tie between Indianapolis, IPFW, and Kentucky Wesleyan for the 7 and 8 spots. All 3 teams are 8 and 10. Crazy scenarios, but the bottom line is win twice, and hopefully we're playing next week.
Yeah, we win twice, we're in. And there's no guarantee. That's not mathematically, but if you win twice, you have to think that you're going to be in. If you win once, and I don't like to think in terms of losing, so I like to think that we'll win twice. But if you win once, it's anybody's guess at that point whether you're in or you're out. You'll have to wait for the people at the conference office to figure out all the tiebreakers probably. And if you lose twice, you don't deserve to be in. So, I mean, a miracle could happen. Everybody loses twice and you get a tiebreaker, but you're pretty safe to say you lose twice, you're out. You win twice, you're in. And if you win once, it's up to some higher authority whether you get in or not.
Well, we wish you the best of luck. We look forward to broadcasting Saturday's game live here on College 56 Sports, and hopefully next week we'll talk about 2 victories.
That'd be great.
Carl Semesco has been our second guest here on Mastodon Spotlight, head women's basketball coach here at IPFW. That will do it for this edition. A quick reminder, 2 live sporting events coming up this weekend on College 56 Sports. On Friday night, the IPFW Volleydons return to the court, taking on their arch rival Ball State in a match that will begin at 7 p.m. Then on Saturday, as we just mentioned a moment ago, the basketball team closes out the conference schedule. At 1 o'clock, we will see the lady basketball team play against Quincy, followed by the men taking on Quincy at 3 p.m. So if you can't come out to the Gate Sports Center in person, be sure to tune in to College 56 Sports on Friday and Saturday nights. And then we ask you, as always, to come back next week when we will take a look at this week's action on the next edition of Mastodon Spotlight. Until then, this is Mike Moss saying have a great week and go Dons. This past weekend saw the end of the regular season come for the IPFW men's and women's basketball teams, and a spot in the conference tournament was on the line. To see how things turned out, stay tuned to Mastodon Spotlight. It's coming up next.
So what do you think? You hungry?
Yeah.
To be a mentor, you don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be yourself. Do good. Call 1-877-BE-A-MENTOR.
Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Maz. Welcome to another edition of Mastodon Spotlight. Well, as we mentioned a moment ago, the regular season came to a close this past weekend for the IPFW men's and women's basketball teams, and both teams had a shot at making the conference tournament. With us on our first segment this morning is women's head coach Carl Semesco. And Carl, a couple of tough ball games to end the season. Fortunately, both of them were at home. Let's talk first about the game Thursday night with Missouri St. Louis.
Well, it was a game that we thought we really had a good chance of winning. Prepared for it. Thought we, they're a real athletic team. They have some size where they can get the ball inside on us, and we knew that'd be a problem. We knew we were going to have to contain penetration. And, we played pretty well in spurts, but then I don't know that there was a consistency for 40 minutes. We had a couple let-ups during the game that really hurt us, and down the stretch with about 6 minutes to go, we had a tight game where all of a sudden they were able to extend the lead through a couple defensive breakdowns and a couple turnovers on our part when they were pressuring against the press and get some quick baskets and extend the lead to 10. We were able to battle back, actually took the lead, and we think we need to get one stop to win the game. We get the stop, we get the rebound, and we get called for a travel, and then they get a second opportunity to try to win the game, and their player hit a nice shot, good penetration, shot the ball over somebody's hand, made it, and they ended up winning the game by 1 point. And this year has been kind of frustrating in regards to how many last-second losses we have. I mean, we've played 8 games this season that has come down to the last time somebody has shot the basketball, and we're only 2-6 in those games. And how quickly a season can turn if you can win those close games. And a young team, maybe you don't expect to win, but we had been in those situations enough that I thought we should be comfortable and we should be able to make the plays. And we did make the plays down the stretch to win that one. Unfortunately, they got a second crack at the last shot, and they were able to make that one. So it was a real tough loss for us. We knew the next day we were going to have to, or on Saturday I should say, we were going to have to win if we expected to get into the tournament.
Even though the team lost by 1 point, there were some good performances. Jamie Holderman with 29 points, 17 points for Carl Moore, 15 points for Shani Smith, who seems to be improving every game, and 10 points for Trish Fleming. So there were some good performances.
Yeah, I mean, Missouri St. Louis tied for second in our conference. They ended up losing the tiebreaker and getting the 3rd seed, but they're tied for second. And, the difference between, I mean, they're a good team, but the difference between our two teams is not very significant. It's a couple plays here, a couple plays there. We're the youngest team in the conference. They got 5 or 6 seniors. So, I think that experience for them paid off in the end. Although, I still think we made plays down the stretch in this game where, we lost other games at the end of the game where I thought it was us not making a play down the stretch. In this case, I think they made a play at the end. And unfortunately, when we made our play, we had the turnover call, we had the traveling call, and gave them a second chance at it. But, the difference between 2 through 9 in our conference, it's tough to find the difference, actually. I mean, the records are different, and usually, as I said earlier on this program, an earlier broadcast, the teams with a little bit more experience, the Lewises and the Missouri St. Louis, are beating some of the younger teams in our conference, even though they're real tight games. They're winning those 2-point games where some of the younger teams like ourselves are losing those 2-point games.
Well, that set things up for Saturday. final regular season game, final regular season home game, win, and hopefully you get in the tournament, lose, and you got to go to church and pray. The game we broadcast here in College 56 Sports, and in the first half, the team got off to a great start. And you went in the locker room leading 41-27. You held Quincy to 33% shooting from the floor, 0 of 9 from three-point range. Great performances. Mandy Lovelace, senior, final home game. In the first half, she had 9 rebounds. Jamie Holderman, 15 points in the first half, 12 of 13 at the free throw line, and she showed more aggressiveness taking the ball into the hole than I had seen in some time. She'd been aggressive all year, but she played with a purpose, as it did the entire team. You're up by 14 going in the locker room. For the most part, you had to be feeling pretty good, but we both know that we've had some games where we've had leads and haven't been able to hold on to them. What did you and Bob say to the team at halftime?
Well, almost exactly what you just said, because right at the end of the first half, I mean, we had like a 14 to 16 point lead in the first half, and all of a sudden they cut it down to 8 before we were able to extend it back up, fortunately, before the half. And I thought they got back into it just because we've had some let-ups. Unfortunately, when we have had the lead on some teams, and even good teams, we forget how we got that lead to begin with. And all of a sudden, we want to play a different style. We don't, all the little things that we have to do, like rotate down quickly, move on the fly to the ball, block out, all of a sudden that becomes less important to us, and we'd rather just, you know, play the way we want to play instead of how we have to play to be successful. And, I mean, as you know, that's hurt us numerous occasions this year, and I thought I saw some of that near the end of the half, and they cut it to about an 8-point game. And you could see in our eyes where we're in the situation like, let's not let this happen again. We've done this too many times. And fortunately, right at the end of half, we were able to extend it to 14. But I went into halftime and just told them that, you know, we got to continue doing, you know, play the way we're supposed to play. We went in with a game plan of we wanted to attack the basket more off the dribble. And obviously, Jamie getting to the foul line that many times was indicative of that philosophy. And it was just a matter of we couldn't let up, and we had to keep playing our game. And when we first came out in the second half, it's like they didn't hear anything. I mean, for about the first 2 minutes, because all of a sudden they get a couple putbacks right away, and we were really emphasizing the backside block out. First 2 possessions, we don't get it. And at that point, I'm a little bit nervous because it looks like we're a little bit shell-shocked. But after the first couple minutes, we played about maybe 12, 14 minutes of real good basketball where we didn't give them very many good looks. We forced a lot of turnovers. We're able to score off the turnovers, and you know, it's really, it was nice having a little bit of cushion going into the last few minutes of the game.
Well, second half, the team did respond, and you came out on top 76-58. The numbers, Jamie had 28 points, and 18 points for Kara, 14 points for Trish, and those are numbers that you like to see. But there are some other performances. I know Tiara Dudley stepping in front of passing lanes. She wasn't credited with any steals, but I thought defensively she played tremendous ball game. Mandy Lovelace, correct me if I'm wrong, perhaps her best performance of the year?
Mandy's had a couple good performances. This would rank up there, and if we're going to continue in the tournament, we're really going to need some solid play out of her because you know, everybody we play now is going to have real solid post play, and she's going to have to be strong in there on the boards and try to get some putbacks for us and things like that. But you mentioned Tiara Dudley, and not credited with the steal, but we both saw how many passes she deflected for somebody else to steal. And you know, some people, you know, sometimes the numbers say it all, and other times it doesn't say anything. And I think this is a case where, obviously, I mean, she may be our best defensive player, and definitely she's, without question, the player who makes the most defensive plays for us, whether it be deflections or whether it be providing help on penetration or, you know, getting a loose ball or taking a charge. I mean, she provides those things for us. So, you know, offensively, we're still working on getting her some skills and some consistency with handling the basketball and things like that. But defensively, she's, as a freshman, been probably our best player.
Well, the bottom line was a victory, and the season comes to a close. And I think we may have a shot at the conference standings up here in a moment. We finished 9-11 in the conference, tied with Indianapolis and with Kentucky Wesleyan. 2 of the 3 made it. Indianapolis made it, I believe, on virtue, I think you correct me if I'm wrong, Indianapolis beat us twice, we beat Wesleyan twice, and Indy played Wesleyan once and beat them, I believe.
Wesleyan actually beat Indy.
Okay.
It's the tiebreaker situation is crazy. I didn't understand how they worked it out. Fortunately, we were a team that made it into the tournament, unfortunately, for Kentucky Wesleyan. You know, I'm sure they're upset. I mean, I know we're looking at it like we're happy to be in, and then we look ahead of us and we're like, oh, we have those 2 games against Indy, which we had opportunities to win and fell short, and that puts us in a worse seed. And I know Kentucky Wesleyan is probably looking at it like they took us in a double overtime at our home court, and if they just win that game, they're in instead of us. So, you know, you can look back at it a number of different ways. We're happy to be in, and we just, you know, we're in the 8th seed. We got to deal with playing Northern Kentucky and put forth the best game we can.
Well, you mentioned it. It's David versus Goliath. Number 1 Northern Kentucky, number 1 seed, winning 16 games in a row against number 8 seed IPFW. You've played them tough for the most part. You did have an unfortunate second half just a couple of weeks ago at their place, when you just plain ran out of gas after playing 5 games in 9 days or 10 days.
Yeah.
What's the game plan for this first game?
Well, we're still trying to figure out a game plan. We've been watching a lot of tape. There's not many weaknesses on their team. That's how you get to be 4th in the country, because they have real good perimeter shooting, and they have the best perimeter shooting in the league, and they also have the best inside play in the league. They also have the best defense in the league by far. So there's not a lot of weaknesses. You know, I don't know what happened this past weekend, but there's been 4 occasions in this conference season. Now, they've only lost 1 conference game out of 20, but there's been 4 times where this season where a team has gone into some point in the second half and either been tied with them or had the lead. Well, 2 of those 4 have been us. So we can take that as a positive of, hey, the first time, 34 minutes into the game, we have a lead. Second time, you know, not quite as long because our second half was so miserable, but 23 minutes into the game, we're tied with them. So we've shown the ability to be able to play with them over stretches. Unfortunately, the same problems that have haunted us all season is we have not been able to put together 40 good minutes, whether it be inexperience or just lack of concentration. We have let-ups, and as soon as you do that against Northern Kentucky, what is a tie game or a real close game, suddenly they are very capable of putting on a 12-0 run, a 14-0 run, and when it's somebody else, you might say, oh, we can get back in this, but when it's Northern Kentucky, I think there's something that goes off into the players' heads where, uh-oh, now what are we going to do? You know, where, you know, if it's anybody else, you'd say, we can get back in this. We need to get on a run. And hopefully, you know, we talked with the team yesterday about having confidence and saying, you know, a lot of strange things happen in the tournament. And you just got to go in there, have your game plan, stick to it, and, you know, really it's going to come down if you're making shots and playing good defense and getting rebounds and not giving them second shots, and they're not shooting as well as they have the other 2 games against us, you get to stay in the game. And, you know, hopefully the longer we stay in the game, we know the more pressure goes to Northern Kentucky, because they're supposed to win, and they're supposed to be one of the very best teams in this country. And as long as we stick around, we can put some pressure on them where they haven't been in that situation very many times. And although they're much more mature than we are in years, we have been in the situation where games are real tight at the end several times. So we're just hoping that we can keep it close and stay into the game to the last 5 minutes and put some pressure on them to make some plays.
We wish you luck. Have a safe trip, and we'll talk about it next week.
Thank you.
Carl Semesco has been our first guest, head women's basketball coach here at IPFW. We'll take a short break. And then we'll come back and speak with Doug Knoll and see how the men did. That's when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
They were ordinary people who half a century ago did nothing less than help save the world. And yet there is no national memorial to honor their sacrifice. It is time to say thank you.
Call now and help build the National World War II Memorial.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Joining us now is the men's head basketball coach here at IPFW, Doug Knoll. And Doug, entering this final weekend of play, you had a similar situation to Carl with your ball club. You're in a dogfight for a position in the conference tournament. You know you had to win at least one of them, if not both of them. A couple of opponents. At least you had the 2 games here at home, and we talked briefly last week about how important it was to be able to play these final 2 games here at home. Let's talk about first the Thursday night game against Missouri St. Louis.
Yeah, we really felt like we were maybe a little bit in the driver's seat, Mike, because we had both games at home and both teams were either tied with us or below us. We didn't have, a power team in our league like Wesleyan or Southern Indiana or Northern Kentucky coming in, so we felt pretty good about that. The Missouri St. Louis game, we looked back and we were actually tied with them with 4 minutes to go at their place and had played really probably one of our not maybe one of our worst games, but poor shooting games. We shot 28% for the game at their place, and we still were in the game up to the end where we fouled, and I think the score was 12, which wasn't indicative of being a close game. But we came out, looked like we had intensity from the start. We really needed to, set the tone defensively, and we did that. I think that throughout the game, we pretty much had things going our way up until probably about the 8-minute mark where we were up 14, and then we saw it kind of slide away a little bit. And then as we went, the noose got a little tighter and tighter, and we played not to lose rather than playing to win. And but we eked one out against UMSL, and that game seems so far away right now after the Quincy game. But we needed that game. That did put us in the tournament based on everybody else and the things that transpired with the league, so we were pleased with that, but we felt like, hey, we had one more game to prove, and, really that's what we wanted to do.
Looking at that St. Louis game, looking at some of the numbers, 4 players in double figures, which I know as a coach you like to see, where the wealth is spread around and the other team can't focus on one player like a Steve Griffin, like most teams have tried to do all year.
Yeah, well, Griff, he didn't have one of his best weekends, but yeah, we did have 4 in double figures. I think maybe Nick led us in scoring that game, but I think everybody really contributed and everybody really played. I think to our abilities rather than the competition, and I thought we were in the flow from the start, but again. It's a good thing we probably didn't play 41 minutes because that extra minute may have hurt us a little bit. But we got the job done, and we were pleased with that. Any way you can get a win, ugly, pretty, whatever in this league, you got to take it, whether you're home or on the road. In the second half of the year, we've looked at that we haven't really done very well at home, and part of it is we've had a lot of top 5 teams that we've played at home. So the record didn't look that good, but. We were just pleased to get that win.
Yeah, final score 74-72. That set things up for Saturday, the home and regular season finale. You took on Quincy University, senior day, and a little bit of emotion there. 6 seniors playing their last game here at the Hilliard Gate Sports Center. One of these games where everything went back and forth for a while. You seemed to have control for most of the first half, but they seemed to hang around. You went into the locker room up by 2, and a couple of good performances in the first half. Steve had 17 points. Benji Gibbs, and we'll talk more about him in a minute, he had 11 points in the first half. But to say you're up by 2, you're hoping, let's get this win, keep the momentum going. What did you say to the team in the locker room at halftime?
Well, we made some adjustments based on some of the things that we felt we didn't do in the first half, and we let them have too many big runs. They started off the game with a technical foul because one of our kids dunked in warm-ups and the officials had come out already, and that was tough. I don't think that lost the game for us by any means, even though it was, if you take those 2 points away, it's 89 to 90. But at that point in time, you're only down 2-0. But we just tried to make some adjustments, stay focused. We had 20 more minutes to finish the year for the seniors. Our hope was, Mike, that we could take this weekend and get 2 in a row, get that momentum like you'd mentioned going into the tournament. Plus, even for next year, coming back saying, hey, we've won our last 2 last year. That gives us momentum now for running off some home wins. And also, we looked at it that, hey, we won the first 2 games of the year at home. Let's win the last 2 games of the year at home and kind of put a nice package together. And so those and we didn't talk about that at halftime, but we just tried to make some adjustments, try to maybe not help so much on certain kids and try to do a little different situation work on the inside where we weren't being very successful, and Quincy was taking it at us. But I give them a lot of credit. I mean, they're out of the tournament. They don't have anything to play for, but yet they do. They have pride. They have the program, and they want to go out on a big note, and they really did. And you look at it, there was just a ton of distractions. I mean, it's great in the fact that, you look at your seniors and you're glad that you can reward them and everything, but, people coming in, people staying overnight. One guy had like 12 friends come down and stay overnight with him. Well, how much sleep did he really get? Just a lot of distractions, and the bottom line is we didn't make basketball plays down the stretch when we needed to. And there was 5 instances where had one of those gone right, we probably would have won the game, but all 5 didn't go right for us, like not being strong with the ball underneath and getting a deflection where they got the ball when in essence we're strong, we get a layup or a foul. Gambling on situations that put us behind the ball, and then our rotations broke down. Then they got to put back, missing a free throw, letting the guy at the end of the game go to the basket, shoot a layup, and get fouled. I mean, everything that could have gone wrong did, especially after Benji's dunk with 30 seconds to go and we're up 4. So it's kind of like a dagger in the heart, so to speak, where you think you've got it in hand, you still got to play it out, but you got it in hand, and the next thing you know, with 3 seconds to go, they get a 3-point play and beat you. So that was difficult.
A couple of things that hurt. You mentioned some of the mistakes, mental, physical, and otherwise. They had a couple of players, Tyrese Stewart, 7 of 11 from 3-point range. She ended up with 23 points. That hurt you because it seemed like he hit a 3 at the worst time for IPFW. Their big man, Brian McNeil, 21 points, 14 rebounds, hurt. And then a player that they come off the bench, Lampton Johnson out of Detroit, he's the player who ended up going down the court on that last play and making the 3-point play and winning the ball game for them. So those 3 players helped them to win. We go down to the focal, as far as I was concerned, the focal point of the ball game. With just a few seconds on the clock, we're up to Randy Spicer's at the line for 1-1. Tough situation, senior, and unfortunately, he didn't hit the first one. But could have been, it was a 2-point game, could have made it a 3 or possibly 4-point and then 2-possession game. Ends up, we're down to, as you say, they get the rebound and Johnson goes all the way down and takes it in, gets fouled, and makes a 3-point play. We lose 91-90. What did you say to your team after the game? Especially the seniors.
Yeah. That's difficult because it was probably, I think, probably the toughest loss we had all year. And probably the quickest post-game meeting that we had all year with the kids. There's nothing to say. I mean, they're all devastated. They're all going from ecstasy to in the tank. I mean, in a matter of a few seconds. And it's difficult. I mean, obviously Randy didn't step up to the line and say, I'm going to miss these free throws because I want to lose. He wanted to win just like anybody else. And, going out, I hope that, this will stay with him for a while, but hopefully it'll, they'll forget it and move on with their lives because they've had a lot of great experiences here. But it's really difficult for the coaching staff especially too. And as I look back, hindsight, but I feel like I made a mistake in the fact that I didn't call 2 plays in the huddle. I called 1, and then when Lampton hit the free throw, they sent a sub in, and we couldn't run our break, our sideline break, to get a quick shot off with 3 seconds to go, because we can get that shot off in about 2.7. But they called a timeout, adjusted, and set it up, and we only had a 30-second timeout, so I couldn't get everything in. But I still feel like if I'd have called 2 plays, and we have a Kentucky play that is a full court pass with a catch and a pass, kind of like Bryce Drew hit that shot. Ours is called Kentucky. That maybe, making that adjustment we could have done better. But you feel bad for the seniors because I thought especially Benji had the game of his life, 27 points, and he really played well. Ish only had 6, but I thought Ish just played his heart out. He had 2 dunks, one right at the end of the first half and one with about 3 minutes to go in the game. A couple nice putbacks that allowed us to stay in the game and then, take a little bit of a lead. But when we were up 88-84 and we were up 90-86, and to see that one slip away, that one, that's a killer. And, I'm not sure if we can bounce back. I mean, I think we can because it's a new day, it's new life, and it really didn't hurt us any as far as the seeding goes. But what really hurt us was the fact that it would have been great for the seniors to go out winning their last home game that they played on our court, and that didn't happen. And for that, I'm disappointed for those kids because they've given us a lot this year. We're going to miss the 6 seniors, and we don't have to have senior day next year because we won't have any seniors. But it was great that each of them, somewhere down the line during the year, really did a great job for the program. I think it's a tribute to them, that they were all eligible. They all played the full year together, other than Mike, who had to sit out the first half of the year. So it was disappointing to them and for them. But they get to go to the tournament, and other than the fact that, we lost that game for them, we're still the same seed. We're still playing Northern Kentucky. And we had 5 games, Mike, that came down to 1 or 2 possessions that, we could have went from 11-15 to basically 15-11 or 16-10. It was that close. And, but when you have all these guys that in one year all come together, it's hard sometimes to get them all on the same page, and maybe we didn't do as good a job as we needed to. But I thought they battled every game, and that was a key tribute to them. We didn't always win, but we battled.
Well, believe it or not, we made the conference tournament in spite of the 1-point loss. And I don't know how it was set up, but you end up with the number 6 seed. You get to play Northern Kentucky again. They got the 3 seed. We're almost out of time, unfortunately, but a quick thought, what do you have to do against Northern Kentucky this time around to come out with a win?
Well, they're number 1 in the conference in threes and one of the top teams in the nation. We're number 2 in the conference in threes. So when we played them last time, the tempo was a little less than we'd liked. We'd like to get it up and down, more so like the Quincy game than the UMSL game. Not in the 70s, but in the 90s. But there, Steve Griffin, the leading scorer in the GLVC this year, had a shot with a minute to go to take the lead on them at their place. And I thought we did a better job adjusting the second time around against them. They are very dangerous. They got everybody that can shoot. We basically have to control their perimeter game outside. Long shots mean long rebounds, so we can't give them second chance baskets. And we just have to refocus and go back in saying, just like Quincy was this week, we have nothing to lose. We're not supposed to win. Let's go out there and shock the world. It's the tournament, so anything can happen. In a 7-game series, they may be better than us. In a 1-game series, you only need that 1 day to play better than them, and things can happen. So we're excited. We're going to regroup and get down there, play the noon game on Thursday, and play as hard as we can, and hopefully we can come out with a win.
We wish you luck.
Thank you.
Doug Noah's been our second guest, head men's basketball coach here at IPFW. That's it for this edition of Mastodon Spotlight. To see how things turn out in the GLVC tournament, tune in to Mastodon Spotlight next week, and we'll talk to you all about it. Until then, this is Mike Maas saying have a great week, and go Dons. The IPFW women's basketball team participated in the Great Lakes Valley Conference postseason tournament this past week in Evansville, Indiana. To see how things turned out, stay tuned to Mastodon Spotlight. It's coming up next.
It was called the greatest generation any society has ever produced. They were ordinary people who half a century ago did nothing less than help save the world. Millions served in uniform, millions more served at home, and nearly 500,000 gave their lives. And yet there is no national memorial to honor their sacrifice. It is time to say thank you.
Call now and help build the National World War II Memorial.
Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Moss. Welcome to another edition of Mastodon Spotlight. Well, as we said a moment ago, the women's basketball team here at IPFW participated in the Great Lakes Valley Conference postseason tournament held at Roberts Stadium in Evansville this past week. And they had a Herculean task taking on #1 seed Northern Kentucky in the first round. With us is the head coach here at IPFW, Carl Somesco. And Carl, tournament atmosphere, what's it like?
Well, it was a good experience for our players. First of all, as you know, tournament time, the intensity picks up and the stakes increase a great deal, and you have to show up with your best game. And, you know, great atmosphere. They run a real first-rate tournament down in Evansville. You're talking about a real nice facility, and they have some special accommodations for the players, and they just do everything first rate. I mean, I was in the ACC tournament last year, and you know, they tried. Carl McAloose, our commissioner, said they're trying to follow the same type of model, and I mean, I was just real impressed with everything. And I think our players see how important it was for us to qualify this year, just so that we could get accustomed to our surroundings and understand what it's going to take to be successful in that tournament.
What's the preparation like? It's obviously you win and you stay alive, you lose and it's all over. But it's, like you say, the atmosphere is totally different. How much of a hindrance is a tournament in terms of game preparation?
Well, I don't know that it's a hindrance for that first game because you have time to prepare. The only things that come in to play is you have to leave a day early, and then your practice time. You know, you shoot around time, you only get a half hour instead of an hour. You don't get practice time at the facility the day before, so you're looking at your own gym and seeing when you can squeeze an hour of practice in. So, you know, it throws you off your routine a little bit, but I mean, everybody's in the same situation with that. So, you know, game preparation for the first game's not too bad. It's after, if you can get by the first game, now you only have one day to prepare for, you know, whoever might be in the second round. And, you know, if you're lucky enough to go to the championship game, you play the very next day, so there's not a lot of time. So, you know, we brought tapes on everybody, you know, our scouting information on everybody that made the tournament, just in case we were able to advance. Unfortunately, we didn't have to use any of it.
Well, let's talk about the matchup. You were the 8th seed by crazy setup, as we talked about in last week's show, and you're playing Northern Kentucky, arguably one of the best women's teams in the country in Division II. I believe they came into the game with a 16-game winning streak, first place in the conference. Let's talk about the game itself. Obviously, it's a tough road, 8-against-1, David Goliath, but also the fact Northern Kentucky wasn't all that far away from Evansville, so they, I'm sure, brought a lot of fans with them.
Yeah, Northern Kentucky probably brought the most fans on the women's side. They have the best team. There's a big drop-off between #1 and #2 in our conference, and you know, after that, 2 through 8 maybe even 2 through 9, are very similar. And, you know, had we been in a different position, I think we would have had a very good shot at going all the way to the championship game. But, you know, we felt, you know, we were in a tiebreaker for the 7th. We come up with the 8th spot. We have Northern Kentucky, but we had played Northern Kentucky really as well as anybody in the conference. We were unable to play 40 good minutes ever against Northern Kentucky, but in spurts, we had looked real good against them. So we went in with some confidence. You know, we have a bunch of young kids maybe a little bit shocked by the surroundings, and you're playing the number 2 team in the country, and you're playing in the tournament, and you know, we didn't have any kids that have played in a college tournament before, so obviously the experience factor was in their favor. But you know, we came out and really played pretty well for the first 20 minutes, and you know, I don't think nobody in the tournament played them as well as we did for 20 minutes, but we don't have a lot of depth, and they keep running in 9 people, sometimes 10 people, and they wear you down because and then as soon as you let up just for a second, and for us it was right at the beginning of the second half, we kind of emphasized how important that first 5 minutes of the second half was going to be, because it was 6 points at halftime. Right away in the first 2 minutes, they make a couple plays and make it 13. And Northern Kentucky's they don't really let you back in. They don't give you a lot of opportunities to let you back in games because they're so solid. So I thought that was a critical 2 minutes, because after that point we play them even for almost the rest of the half. But we didn't, I mean, playing them even wasn't going to do us any good. We needed to start making inroads and start cutting it under 10. We were really never able to do that for the second 20 minutes.
As I say, you were down 39-33 at the half. The final score was 76-58. You look at some of the numbers. They had 3 players in double figures. Michelle Turkfarber, who ended up being tournament MVP, had 17 points, and Michelle Cottrell had 14, and Heather Livingstone had 13. You had 2 players in double figures. Jamie Holderman, 27 points, and Kara Moore with 11. Talk about the performances of some of your players.
Well, you know, I don't think that our players played as well as, you know, we have been playing. Jamie is somebody who's been probably our most consistent performer all year, and we played Northern Kentucky relatively tough for, you know, 20 minutes in one game and 35 minutes in the other, and she hadn't played well against Northern Kentucky. So we were hoping if everybody else could play a very good game and we get Jamie, maybe that's something that can make a difference. Well, Jamie gave us an outstanding first half, and I mean really laid it all out on the floor, and then we had you know, just poor shooting nights from a bunch of kids. Even, I mean, Kara I think was 4 of 19, Trish 3 of 11, Shaney 0 for 4. I mean, 3 of your kids that are playing the most minutes, you're talking about shooting about under 20%. So you know, part of that's probably nerves being in a big game. Some of it's just, you know, you have bad shooting days. It's the wrong time to do it, and obviously some credit has to go to the fact that Northern Kentucky plays the best defense in the league. But if we're going to beat a Northern Kentucky, those kids really have to step up and have an excellent game. And, you know, you look at stats of that game, a lot of things we did just as well as they did. I mean, we turned the ball over less, we got more offensive rebounds, we got more shot opportunities, but they, from 3-point range, from 2-point, they shot at a much higher percentage than we did. So that's something that we're emphasizing, that we need to get in the gym, we need to be able to make those plays, and we have to work so hard that we can simulate the kind of defense or do it against at the type of intensity that Northern Kentucky provides. So it's one thing to get in the gym and work on some things. It's another thing to be working at a level where it's going to, you know, seem similar to playing one of the best teams in the country.
Well, as we said, the final score was 76-58. Northern Kentucky then went on to play Bellarmine in the semifinals after Bellarmine had knocked off SIU Edwardsville, and Northern Kentucky was victorious 73-55. In the lower bracket, a couple of upsets. Indianapolis, the 7th seed, went into overtime and defeated Lewis 89-82. And then they took on 3rd-seeded Missouri St. Louis, which had a tough time with Southern Indiana, only winning by 5, and they came back from a 20-point halftime deficit to defeat St. Louis 70-69. So you had a number 1 and a number 7 in the finals, and Northern Kentucky prevailed. I believe it was 77-57. So Northern Kentucky ended up winning the conference championship all the way around.
Yeah, well, tournament went kind of expected, even though, you know, you say the upset's on the lower side of the bracket. But, I mean, I think all the coaches felt, although might have been a slight upset, that there was no telling what was going to come out of the lower bracket, just because, as I said earlier, the teams 2 through 9 were so even that you put them on a neutral floor. You saw a lot of close games, overtimes, and you know, it wasn't a situation where the 7 seed beat the 2 seed and people were stunned, if you know what I'm saying. So, you know, that's why it's important for your seeding to move up, and hopefully all of us, especially us, can make up some ground on Northern Kentucky so that, you know, we're not in that, no one's in that situation where we feel like it's going to take an incredible effort or something like that for someone other than Northern to win the tournament. And I felt this year, you know, I don't think we had to play a perfect game to win, but we needed a lot of players to play very well in the same game for us to win. We couldn't show up with 2 people or 3. We would need, you know, everybody to have a very good game for us to win. And, you know, that's hard to get all the time, especially in the tournament with the extra pressure. So, you know, I'm thinking that even though Northern Kentucky doesn't lose anybody, that, you know, some teams are going to have to raise it up a notch to really make this tournament more competitive next year.
Well, the season is now complete, and you finish with a record of 13-14. We'll take a little break, and when we come back, we'll review the season and look ahead to see what's in the future for IPFW women's basketball. That's when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
Brian's a student that I had in my resource class. Came from a very poor background. Brian just needed a friend, so we paired him with a community leader. He would take him to rodeos, and then he would take him to plays and different things that this child would never have been exposed to. This man taking his time to come and have lunch with him meant more than anything.
Point a kid in the right direction. This is General Colin Powell of America's Promise. Call us and help keep America's Promise.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. We're visiting today with the head women's basketball coach here at IPFW, Carl Somesco. And Carl, as we said a moment ago, with the loss to Northern Kentucky in the tournament, your first season here at IPFW is now complete. And let's talk about the season. Let's break it down. Overall, we finished 13-14. But let's review the season beginning with the preseason games and go back and talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Well, we started off pretty strong. Started off the season 6-2. Obviously, wasn't the same competition as that we were going to face in the conference. Beat some pretty good teams, but you know, next year we have a little bit tougher non-conference schedule that should prepare us a little better for our conference season. And we made some progress. We had lost some players in that middle part of the season, and that's where I think we really struggled, is the middle part of the season. And, you know, I don't know what we went for the middle part of the season, but we were probably 2-8 or somewhere in that area where we were making adjustments to the lineups. Kids that weren't playing before were starting to play now and get some experience. And then down the stretch, I thought we played pretty well. We're 5-3 down the stretch run, but you know, the 2 losses are a last-second shot to Missouri St. Louis, where they're given a second chance at the end of the game when they call the travel on us, and the loss in overtime to Indianapolis, where they have their post player hit a 3 to send it into overtime. So you're talking about being 2 shots away from finishing the season 7-1. But overall, I mean, if you look at the season, you're talking about an 11-game improvement over last season, making the conference tournament. And when you factor in all the things you can't control, like all the personnel losses that we had during the year, you'd have to say, you know, that's a pretty significant turnaround. In fact, I'm not sure, not having checked it out, but it's pretty rare. I know there's no more than a handful of teams at any level that have an 11-game improvement in one season. And having said that, I think it could have been better. I mean, this year has been a crazy year when it comes to games that came down to the wire. We played an extraordinary number of games, 8, that came down to the last shot of the game, which is, almost a third of your season came down to the final shot. And we didn't do very well in those games. We were 2-6 in those games. And, hopefully as we get more mature, one, we won't be in that situation as much if we improve, or maybe we're in that situation with some of the games where we weren't in it at the very end. And, just having that year of experience on our belt, maybe we start winning those close games at a better percentage, and that could make a world of difference. I mean, if we could have flipped the 2-6 to the 6-2, we're probably in a position where we make the NCAA tournament this year. That's how significant those close games are and winning those close games. So we made tremendous strides this year. I really feel like we're on the right track, and we're putting ourselves in position to be a national tournament team. Now we need to be able to make the next step. We need to make a step. I mean, I don't know that making another 11-game jump is realistic at this point, but you make another 7-game jump, in that area, you're talking about a 20-win season. You win 20 wins in our conference, you go to the national tournament. And, I think that's very realistic. And considering, when I took this job, a lot of people were scratching their heads what was going on, and there weren't many people that thought we'd win, we'd have a hard time matching 2 this year. So, I'm happy with the progress, but I know how close we were to having even a better season, and I think if we have the right attitude, add some people that fit well with our system, that, we could really make a run at a 20-game season and hopefully be in a position where we can play Northern more competitively. And, I just think the program's in real good shape right now. It's just a matter of the attitude of the players that are returning and mixing some good kids with them. And if we all work hard and have the right attitude, I think we can be real successful.
On a personal level, what has this year been like compared last year? As you said, you were an assistant at the University of Maryland. And the year before that, you coached Walsh University to the National NAIA Championship. What's been the year like for you personally, and contrast the different experiences being head coach here as opposed to being in the ACC and as opposed to coaching a national champion in NAIA?
Well, I mean, you got a whole set of different variables depending on the situation you're looking at. I would say this has been my most challenging year in coaching. I mean, for a whole host of reasons, but you look at the team I took over 2 years ago, we were kind of where we are right now. A middle-of-the-pack team. We were picked 6th out of 9 in the conference when I took over, and that very year we turned it over into a national championship team. But, that team was pretty, focused and driven and really wanted that success. And I think another factor was I was an assistant there for a year. So the players knew me better. There was more of a coach-player, a caring relationship already built so that there wasn't as many struggles with attitude and things like that. They were, they knew what I expected, they knew what I was about, and they were all about getting it done because they wanted to have that success. And then leaving to go to Maryland to see, the Carolinas and the Dukes and compete against Virginia, that was a thrill. But being an assistant, although I thought I did a good job as an assistant, I really enjoy having the responsibility of, the wins and losses and, making the head coaching decisions. So I think it'd be hard for me to be an assistant again. But, that was, at the same time, that was a great experience, and I don't regret doing it at all. And coming back here and being a head coach again, taking over a program, and it was intentional. There was offers or situations where maybe people would think would have been a wiser decision or opportunities to go D1 right away. But I wanted to be in the Midwest. I wanted to be in a situation where a program needed to be rebuilt, and I wanted to do it quickly. And I think we've headed in that direction rather dramatically. But, I mean, this year was really a struggle because, I mean, you inherit kids, some of which aren't as committed as others, and decide to leave the program, either in August or, right before basketball season starts, before they even do anything with basketball. That leaves you, with some personnel problems, and then even, the problems we had during the season with kids leaving. I don't think, partially because we're so young, partially maybe because I'm a new coach and they hadn't had the relationship with me yet, that, I don't think we were committed to one another like you need to be if you're going to be a very successful team. I don't think you can just be a collection of people. I think you need to have that commitment toward one another and understand why you're working so hard to achieve this goal. And it's for one another as much as it is for you. And, we're going to be working on that this next year because we're going to have a similar situation in that we're going to be bringing in a lot of new faces, and they got to blend in with the players who have been here and understand the system for a year. And we're going to have to try to have a little bit better cohesion this year and just be more committed towards being successful and a little bit more committed toward one another. And, if we can get that in place, we can make a real nice run. And I'm already talking about nice runs for next year. We haven't even, signed anybody or anything like that. But I just really think that the program is headed in the right direction. And I'm a lot more excited about coaching next year because I think we've turned the corner in a lot of areas. And, we've made the first step. Now I'm ready to make the next one.
Let's take a final look at the players on this year's team. And in any manner you choose, it's like a report card. You don't have to give an A, B, C, D, but talk about the pluses, the minuses, and especially for everybody except Mandy Lovelace, who is graduating. What do you think they need to do to improve for next year?
Okay.
Let's go right from the top. Jamie Holderman, obviously one of the best players in the conference this year.
Yeah, Jamie did real well, and as the season went on, she had a year layoff. As the season went on, she got better and better, and obviously that's something that you look for is you want players to improve over the course of the season, and she did. She was our go-to player, got to the foul line the most time, was our leading scorer, was up there in rebounding, up over 5 a game, almost 6 a game. Really, probably our best player this season. Now we're going to work on getting her stronger and hopefully being able to finish more plays inside, get some three-point plays. But, really it's just going to be another year in our system for her and understanding it better and how to get open and how to use the screens and shot fake to get to the basket, those types of things. But, I expect her to be much better next year having been in the system for a year because our system deals a lot with thinking and understanding rather than following a pattern. And I think, as her numbers increased, some of it was just shaking off the rust and not playing for a year. The rest of it is, just understanding the system a little bit better and how to get open and get good shots. So expect big things out of her next season.
Trish Fleming.
Trish Fleming's probably going to be the freshman player of the year. They haven't announced that. They'll announce that later this week. But she put up the best numbers as a freshman all season. And, she has a great deal of ability. Hopefully she'll be committed to getting better. She needs to get stronger, and she needs to, work on her shot, work on her ball handling a little bit. And, if she really makes a committed effort to that, she can be dangerous because she's one of the players that I really like with versatility, somebody that can go outside, has to be guarded, someone who can go inside, has to be guarded, someone who can defend the perimeter and the post. I mean, those are the type of players we look for, and Trish can do that. If we can get her a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more committed to off-season, working on her game, you're looking at somebody who could be a tremendous player.
Tiara Dudley.
Tiara Dudley, our most aggressive player, our most overlooked player, makes the most defensive plays on our team. Obviously, the thing she needs to work on is developing an offensive game to go with that. She's already very, very strong, one of the stronger players in the conference, but what she's going to need to develop is a consistent 15-foot jump shot, just because right now people are really helping off her. So if we back cut a screen, which could be a layup, her defender is in the way, stopping that from happening. Or if we beat somebody off the dribble, her defender. So we really need her to be in a position where she has to be guarded from about 15 feet and be in position where, you know, hopefully we could post her up a little bit next year and she can get to the foul line. She needs to improve her free throw shooting and, you know, scoring from inside. So, you know, basically we used her mostly as a screener and an offensive rebounder this year. Hopefully next year we can put her in situations where she can take advantage of her quickness and get to the basket and maybe face up and knock down short jump shots.
We're almost out of time, but I'll mention two more players real quickly. Carol Moore and Cheney Smith.
Well, a couple of young guards for us. I'm not sure that either one of them is a point guard. And, you know, if either one of them is going to be, they're going to have to work on their ball handling. But I think both of them improved a great deal over the course of the year. Shaney pretty dramatically toward the end of the season started playing a lot better. And Kara also played better the second half of the season. You know, both of them are just going to have to become more consistent offensively, but I think maybe their biggest work is going to be defensively, working on getting stronger, working on defensive footwork, that type of thing. But, you know, it's exciting. I mean, all the names you mentioned are kids that played a great deal for us this year, and they're all going to be back next year, and mixed with a new group of kids, it could be an exciting time for IPFW.
Well, there's a few other players, but we don't have time, and I'm not meaning to slight them, but again, I want to congratulate you on the season and coming in here, and as you say, an 11-game turnaround, 13 wins, making a conference tournament. Congratulations to you and to Bob. And I want to thank you for coming on the show during the course of the season. And we wish you the best in the recruiting season and next year, and we will have you on later in the spring, and we'll talk about recruiting and other needs for the women's basketball program.
Well, thank you.
Carl Semesco has been our guest today, head women's basketball coach here at IPFW. That will do it for this edition of Mastodon Spotlight. We'll be back next week, and we'll have Doug Knoll with us to review the men's basketball season. That's when we return next week on Mastodon Spotlight. Until then, this is Mike Maas saying have a great week, and go Dons.